Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of what have we gotten ourselves into? Um, got a whole day of work planned out and hopefully get something done. Pick up where we left off. I'm not going to get anything done by talking, so let's get to it. Alright, we're all hooked up. Lift this dude up and see how bad we jam up on them pipes. So we're pretty much separated at the transmission. She's not really digging hard on anything yet. I mean, I still kind of scoot it a little from left to right. Worst case scenario, I might have to take off these motor mount bolts. I don't know if I can get to the nuts. Don't know. I could take the plates off the engine itself. That would definitely get the room I need. But I'm gonna go in there and see if I can push on the transmission. Alright, so what I'm going to do at this point is I've got the motor lifted up, as you can see, and it's on the front side of those motor mounts, but I can't really go higher because, like I suspected it would, it's wedging. See those exhaust pipe deals? They're hitting the sides of the firewall. Now I could probably holler and yell and jerk and push and shove and get it out, but I think, you know, the best option right now is to get in there. Hang on, let me move the camera. Get in there while this motor is pulled way forwards. Pull out the front exhaust manifold bolts, and then come in here to the inside. Then roll the engine straight back towards the back of the van, maybe 8 inches or so. And then I can easily get, you know, with an impact, I can get straight onto those, and then the remaining one from up there in the front, and just pull the manifolds off. This manifold is the one that really is going to create the problem if I tried to keep trying to pull it, because it goes straight down. Basically, it'd be hitting that motor mount. So my option would be to take the motor mounts off either the engine block or the frame, or just pop the manifolds off. And now that the motor engine is up about 2 inches higher than it is when it's sitting on the motor mounts, I can now get a straight shot at these. When the engine is bolted in place, these manifold studs, you know, basically are in line with this, and you just dang near couldn't get the manifold bolts out. So now that the motor is up high and can move forwards and back, it's going to be real easy to get on these. Good chance one or more of them, half of them, if you like my luck, are going to break. But I think in the long run, just popping these manifolds off is just going to be the way to go. I'm not trying to tear anything up. I'm not really in a hurry, so I'll just bust some bolts off of it. I'll bring you back when I get the manifolds off. I'll probably do both. I mean, I'm going to tear this motor down eventually anyways, and no matter what I've done with the motor, I would not be using these exhaust manifolds. So I'm going to go ahead and pop those suckers off and bring you back when I'm done. We'll get this pig out of here. Well, 45 minutes later, I can tell you those exhaust manifolds sucked. So what I ended up doing was I got all the bolts out, of course, but the hot air pipes on this side only has one port here, one nozzle, and then one on the front, so it doesn't have the 2 center ones. So I figured I'd start on that side. So my well, I'll go show you. So my game plan was to just bust this nut loose, bust that one loose, and pull this stupid thing off. But these were hopelessly seized. I mean, there's no chance. So I pulled all the bolts out and got the riser block off out of the way. And I pulled it back just far enough I could chop them with a cut-off wheel. Cut that one, cut that one. Otherwise, it won't go far enough that way to get out of the ports and clear the cylinder heads and everything, you can't really drop them out. So you got to pull that out, that one and that one. On the driver's side, it has two more, one there and one there. So I just did this one first. So once I got this out of the way, I was then able to shove the motor, as you can see, all the way over to the right, which gave me a lot more room over there. And I was able to get that one out without cutting any of the nozzles off. I was able to just pull it and drop it straight out the bottom. So now that that's done, I think we can get this motor out. Tell you, I feel sorry for you veteran GM guys who had to work on these when they were new. That must have sucked. Okay. What do we got hanging up? Need to get a vacuum. This kicked down out of the way. This is the vacuum line running to the transmission. Okay. I don't think that's catching on anything. These are, forgot to disconnect this wire nut. Okay. So these go with the motor, engine, fuel burner, smoke creator, whatever you technical guys want to call it. Not sure what we hanging up on, but we hanging up on something. I don't see nothing. Figure I'd bring you dudes out here. You could sure would be easier with two hands. Two extra hands, that is. Alright, make sure this dipstick tube doesn't catch on anything. It's trying to. Well, these 70s, 80s small gear motors suck. They're terrible. That's an awful lot of stuff you got to put on a motor to make a quarter of a horsepower per cubic inch. All right. Once I get it just a couple inches farther, I'm going to disconnect the rest of these wiring harnesses. I just figured they'd be a lot easier to get out once it's where I can see it. Alright, so I got the wiring harness here topped off and around the corner. Gotta try to kind of scoot this thing out at an angle. Okay, up a little. You know, it's funny, people think an LS swap is super complicated, but compared to trying to make one of these old smog era motors operate and figuring out all the vacuum lines and all that, I mean, I can tell you which one I would pick. Pretty much clear everything that I can see. Hope y'all like looking at my butt. Okay. Okay. Final check. Make sure we're catching something. See anything over there? We're here. I think we're free, guys. Well, that's a good feeling. Get this nasty, disgusting lump of oil out of here. I did want to show you a modification that I made to my cherry picker a long time ago, which is pretty much necessary if you want to pull this motor out straight out the front like I did without pulling the intake. On the end of my boom arm here, it's got the through bolt, which normally has this chain hanging in it right through this, where my fingers are. A long time ago, I ran into clearance problems with the top of the lift hitting like the bottom of cowlings and stuff on newer vehicles. So right here in the very end, get down here, you can see it. Right down at the bottom, there was already a groove for the chain to come up through. So I just cut the last 1/4 inch that wasn't grooved. You can kind of see right here. Basically, that allows me to snake this engine plate right through that slot and run a bolt right through the first hole, which would be there. That allows me to cinch it up super low. And on this motor, it just happened to perfectly wedge against that crumbled up thermostat housing, so it just kept the engine like locked in a certain plane, which isn't ideal, but I didn't take it off and it worked just fine. Figured I'd show you that modification, because if you've got one that's got 3 or 4 inches of chain, you're not going to be able to get this motor picked up high enough without hitting the top of the firewall there. So that wasn't fun, I'll admit. Well, now there's space. Put some magic into this old thing. You do a lot of cleaning. That's next up on my list. Roll this thing outside and get to power washing. Well, after a couple hours of power washing, this is what I'm up against here. Cleaned up real well. Seems crazy to me that there's no drain hole in the bottom of these frame rail sections, but everything cleaned up pretty good. I'm not trying to go for like a show finish or anything like that. It's not perfect. Some of the lines aren't clean yet. I got to change out these motor mounts. Got replacements. Everything cleaned up real nice, especially this side. I think what I'm gonna do is get some semi-gloss or low gloss white paint and just touch all that up, white it all out, like probably like from here up, the actual unibody frame structure. I don't know that I'll worry about this. I might shoot some semi-gloss black on it, but this side has lots of random undercoat. You can see all this tan stuff just randomly placed. So pretty happy with how it turned out. Transmission turned out real good. Over here by the battery, there's undercoating and stuff back here on the fender, that tan colored stuff. But I got all the wiring harnesses, you know, cleaned up pretty good. I'm gonna have to peel a bunch of stuff out of them. Power washed everything. You couldn't even tell really what color all these wires were before. It cleaned up good. Remember, I'll be replacing that whole assembly. Power wash the outside. Just got a whole bunch of crap off of it. I probably will go ahead and reshoot the black behind the headlights. I might do it all the way around, just black that whole area out. But at least everything is clean and my wires are clean and I can kind of see what I'm up against here. So I also hit the transmission. I didn't try to go crazy there. Didn't want to get water in it, so it was just a quick job, but it cleaned up pretty good. Pretty happy with it. Alright, so what I'm planning on doing here real quick is I'm going to get in here and remove some of these clamps and stuff from these inner frame rails and the back side of the core support. I'm going to paint just a real quick paint job on all these areas that are going to be impossible to get to with the motor in it. These areas here that have a ton of this undercoating on, I want to paint that, but I don't want to paint it with all this crap on it. All this, you know, hastily applied factory crap. So that I can do kind of anytime once the motor's already in there. But stuff down here, I definitely cannot get to that with the motor in it. So I'm going to go ahead and pretty all that up, including back up in there. So I'll bring you back when it's done, do some before and after pictures or whatever. So here I did a little rattle can rebuild of the front suspension, just overall cleaning really. I'm not trying to go for any show stuff, but I got everything ugly scraped off and repainted, prettied up. It's better than what GM offered. I didn't go through the trouble of trying to scrape off all the undercoating or all that was, you know, on top of the fender well on the driver's side or anything like that, but I did get it prettied up and it looks a whole lot more pleasant, as you can see in these before and after shots. It's not bad turnaround time for about 3 days, you know, from these nasty oily mess to what it looks like now. So at least if I take it to a show and pop the doghouse off to show people, you know, it doesn't look terrible, look presentable and make a great big difference in the presentation. I do plan on taking it to shows. I also got that nasty stringy insulation pulled off and some good roll-on mat. I'll show you that. This is that sound deadener material. Just comes on these sheets of like wax paper.
pretty easy to cut with a box knife. You can just trace out your patterns. I make templates with paper first, but it's kind of expensive, but I mean, it's real thin. You can layer it up if you want, but it works way more effectively than any of the junk that came under your factory carpet or engine tunnels or whatever. So back to in here, my main objective with this little cleanup and degrease and painting project was to sanitize and paint the areas that needed to be cleaned and prettied up. I did not do anything above this line up across there, or this section here. That I can get to anytime, you know, pretty easy. But all this lower stuff, you can't get to this at all with the motor in it, especially what's down in here. So I just repainted the top of all this, the motor mount stands. Just sanitize it up quite a bit. Looks a lot better. And it's by no means any kind of a... That side had a ton of sound deadening material or rust proofing. I assume because the battery box was there, so I wasn't feeling like scraping all that off. It took hours. I am in a bit of a time crunch. I need to get this engine in this thing, at least where I can kind of get it out of the shop and or right in front of the shop driveway. So this is kind of what I've been up to off camera. Sanitize it, just looks a whole lot better. After I get the motor in it, I'll go ahead and do the same there. I want to scrape off a lot of this dry rotted old sound deadening material, insulating material. Not sure what they called it, but it won't be too difficult. But I can do that easy. I can just throw some plastic over the motor, but all this stuff, there's no way you could get to that with an engine in it. So let's get on to funner stuff. All right, so what I got to do now at this point is take off these clamshell mounts, and they're gonna suck. I mean, you just barely get to the nuts from the backside. So I'm not gonna record it. It's gonna take quite a while. There's nothing exciting about this. There's just barely enough room to get back behind there. This one down here, it's like you gotta figure out how to do that. I'm not sure yet. Some weird combination of wrenches and sockets should get the job done, but I foresee that taking a minute. So I'll bring you back when I get that done. Well, fellers, I got those changed. And I've done some fun things in my life, but changing those out is never gonna be in contention for fun stuff to do. I'm fairly certain whoever invented those was a sick person who just liked to torture people, like mechanics, for example. But I didn't hurt myself. The old ones are pretty trashed out. Those ones are pretty good, so we'll go ahead and switch to the engine. Alrighty then, now comes time where we get some motor mounts put on this engine. I bought these handy dandy little ICT billet motor mounts. They come with a pretty good little technical drawing there of what hardware to use, what configuration, you know, the newer style, aftermarket, or your stock big old dog bowl style. I got my original ones, got them cleaned up, shot a coat of high temp paint on them. They go on there. Now, to confirm which set of holes, you could go here or here to confirm which one it is. I measure from basically on the small block Chevy, from the back of this bell housing to where the upper left hole is going to be in this guy. So on the Chevy 350, whatever that measurement was, to the center of this hole, you're going to want to make a mark wherever that happens to be, somewhere in there. and that's going to be which set of holes you put it in. Because you don't want to go through all the trouble and shove this thing in that hole there and then be, what would that be? 3/8 of an inch off. So make sure you pick the right holes. I've already done that. So the English language is something else. So if you go get a fillet of fish, it's spelled exactly the same as that, except with the B and the F being mixed up. So how come billet is not pronounced billet, or fillet is not pronounced fillet? The English language is something else. I don't even understand it, and I've lived here my whole life. Okay. So I can't find my handy dandy metric, whatever the heck you call this, driver for this. So I'm using an Allen wrench, so don't crucify me. I've got these bolts already, got a dab of Loctite on them, so we'll just go ahead and run these dudes in there. And keep from sticking my finger in the hooky puck. I kind of wish I'd clean this engine up a little better. I mean, there's no grease or nothing on it, but who cares? I hadn't planned on doing all that cleanup in the engine bay, but it was so nasty I just couldn't help myself. Sometimes I just do that. I tend to be a perfectionist and I have a hard time shutting that off. Where you draw the line is a little fuzzy. Hitting a moving target when it comes to working on a daily driver. Work on one area and make that part next to it look bad. Alright, these pull all up in nice. I already did the other side, so you don't have to watch me do this twice. I'm gonna put the torque ease down to right about, if I can get the stupid thing in the hole. Huh. I don't want to go. Do that in a minute. Get the torque ease right about there. And there. There it goes, first time. And there. Now, I've got my big old clamshell mount here. So, we're going to do this hole here first. Oh, I forgot to tell you. One of the bolts hits these this web right here when you try to run that sucker all the way in, so you either have to put washers behind it, which is fine, or trim the end of it down. So just do yourself a trial run first. Make sure I'm not hitting anything there. Don't believe so. It's just barely touching down here on the back of that. Don't think it's enough to really bother. Anyways, I've already done the other side. Like I said, don't forget you got to trim your back of your bolt or washer that one. So. Well, the motor mounts are in, and full disclosure, I didn't like how this little boss here was pushing this bracket back about 1/16 of an inch, wouldn't seat flush, so I pulled it off and notched it. So if you're doing the same swap using the same mounts, you're gonna have to put that notch on this side only. So other than that, that's squared away. Like I said, this one required no modifications. I did find out that this has a lot of play. You probably can't see that, but it has both this play and a little bit in and out, which doesn't matter because that thing is just smashed by the guys that pulled the engine out. So, I mean, I could have saved that, but the power steering is one thing that I do not have figured out yet. I've got to figure out a way to either use the old style pump or in all likelihood use the newer one. I haven't even tried to figure out what my line situation. The return's no big deal, but the pressure line, I probably can just get one made or just find one off the shelf that'll bolt right up. I need to check the thread pitch. I don't know if that thread pitch and that one there is going to be the same. And then also over here, I'm not sure what compressor mount setup I'm going to use. This motor originally had the compressor here. I've got a ton of room up here, so more than likely I'll go with an, a up high compressor mount. I think I actually have in stock one of the Holley side mount compressor deals that puts it over here, but I'm not sure if I have enough room. Or maybe it puts it up here. I don't know. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So what I got to do now is work my way around here to the back. I got to get this motor off the stand, but I'll probably do the intake first, get that out of the way, figure out how I'm going to hang it from the cherry picker. But I've got to get this flex plate off and check the spread between the torque converter bolts and see if I need to enlarge them. Over there, you can see the one off the 350, so I'm going to overlay them, just lay them together and see where these holes wind up. If I need to, I'll just come over here and drill new holes, 3 new holes, and be done with it. There's some confusion about what flex plate you need to use when doing a swap with these trucks. I mean, the early LS motors, they had a different length crank, so that's not going to apply to this engine. Now I've measured, let's see, from here to here, that distance is identical on the small block Chevy and this. And it looks like the hole in the end of the crank is at least the same size or maybe even larger by a tiny bit. I can't confirm that, but once I get the engine off the stand, we'll confirm what's going on there. I actually have I forget the part number, but I have another flex plate that has the turbo 350 size little spacer thing already built in. It's a factory flex plate. I don't know if I'm going to need it or not, but if I do, I'll give you that part number. But I suppose right now we'll go ahead and get this intake popped off. So let's get this intake off, get it out of the way. Figure out a way to get my cherry picker cinched down real snug, real close to the top of this engine. Some guys pull these van motors in and out through the doghouse area in the interior, but that's not really an option for me because my transmission is still there. So I've locked myself in basically to going in the front. Okay. Still got a line on here. Thought I had popped it loose. Apparently my arm bumped it back down. Okay, that's out of the way. Alright, so I'm going to show you the best I can, one-handed, what we're dealing with here. The small block Chevy 350 flex plate is right here, and you can see the holes for the torque converter. Now the LS also has a 3-bolt
torque converter spacer, or this model year does, and this is the part number for this. It's like a 2011 or 13, whichever it is. Forget what year this car is, this motor. So, I'll show you what the difference is. You pull these up where they're flush, perfectly flush, find the hole. This is what you're left with. This is a straight on shot. See how that hole is overlapped by about 40%? You have two options here. We can pull the hole in, like grind the inside edge of that hole, oblong it. Basically take this hole over this direction to about probably here, or we can just come back in here somewhere like halfway between and drill new holes. So I'm more into drilling the new holes because I don't like what most people do is just oblong them. I don't like that because I don't like the bolt not being, you know, centered in the hole. So I'd rather just come over here and make new holes, and it'd be spaced out perfectly right. So I don't see any reason why that's not going to work. I will check my measurement, you know, from here, the diameter of this, just compare notes between the two and make sure that the torque converter will fit in there. Unfortunately, I can't really check it. I can take the torque converter off and set it on here. It's about the easiest way to do it, I suppose, but I should be able to measure. I think it's fine. I think all I got to do is re-drill those holes. But I'll probably just rig up a way where I can just overlay this right on top of this, mark the holes, and drill them. So I'll figure something out there and show you what I'm doing. Let's see, and mark this hole. Make it easier. See if this is one of the squeezy-ons. Nope. All right. She's off. Now if I can get up off the floor. Well, I'm glad y'all could join me. I have this old Flexplate laid over perfectly where the sides are exactly perfectly centered, basically, if you will. And I've got the old LS holes for the torque converter in that window, and let's see, in that window. So all I have to do is find a center line for this hole, this hole, this hole, this hole. That way I can just drill it out. So I'm just gonna trace right through onto the old, right through the old Flexplate onto the new one. Find the center of my hole. This hole on this one over here has kind of been wallered out. Like the hole's been had a loose torque converter in it. Okay, I have 3 holes dead center there. Now I just got to drill some. These are my new hole locations. So I'm going to drill those real quick and bring you back. We'll set this on top of the front of the torque converter, make sure that they're, you know, quasi-square, and then proceed with stuffing a motor in that thing. Well, I'm back again. This literally took 5 minutes. That, and that is my new hole. I deburred the backside just to make sure there's no crap. But they are perfectly centered between the original holes on this Flexplate. This is what I use. Just a cheapo. I like to use this kind that's got that pilot point on it. They seem to be real good. I get them at Lowe's.
And then use this. This, I forget where I got this. I think I got this at Lowe's as well. I think it's just an Irwin or whatever. But I just punch these holes out to a 1/2 inch. Give me a tiny bit of play. It's smaller than the factory holes in this Flexplate, but I'm using smaller bolts. So I'll just set that up there on the torque converter and make sure that nothing's hitting that shouldn't be. Kind of get a measure like a straight edge. Make sure there's no problems, and we'll put this back on the old motor, the new motor.
All right, this is the LS Flexplate setting on the front of the Turbo 350 torque converter. You can see my bolt spacing is pretty much perfect, dead on. There's no clearance problem at all on the front of the torque converter. Let's see, if you straight edge that, there's probably between this lip and the nose of that torque converter, between this face and there's probably 3/8 of an inch at least. So we're totally good there. You can clearly see there's no protrusion into the back of the crankshaft, so just wanted to let you all see that. Well, I got the Flexplate back on. I got out the micrometer, measured that. The inside diameter of this is 0.700. No, 1/700. And the torque converter diameter is just barely smaller than that. But I don't even think that the torque converter is going to protrude into this. I think it's going to be almost flush. But it's not going to be a problem, so we'll go ahead and proceed with stuffing this thing in here. I'm going to put a little bit of anti-seize on each one of these pins, and barring any natural disasters or something, we're going to put a motor in this thing. Well, without further ado, let's get on with it. Can't think of anything that's preventing me from going ahead and getting this done. I'm going to get it in there pretty close to where I need it, and then I'm going to take my my backup safety strap off once I get it in there where if it dropped it wouldn't hit the floor. When I do that, it'll also get the funky angle off of it. Okay. And clear the bumper. Down here. Fortunately, this is not an all or nothing engine lift. I had a jack for a while, but until I got rid of it, that it was all or nothing. It's like you either had it all or you had none. Like went from all the way tight to all the way loose in like 1/16 of a turn. Okay, down here. Yeah, if you're doing this swap and you're coming in the front, you have to get that thing cinched down tight, like way low right here. Let's see, to catch on the ground in the dipstick. I didn't paint this bar here, or this lower front part of that fascia, just in case we scratched it or something. Okay, ground wire on the firewall, just barely in the way. This would be a lot easier probably if I didn't have coils on it.
Wish you could see how tight this clearance is. It's pretty crazy. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to put you guys in the van so you can see it come the other direction. Tell me if I'm about to hit anything. Okay, go down a hair. See it hitting anything yet? It's barely touching the dipstick tube. Barely touching the transmission line. Alright, I can come down some. Yeah, we're almost there. Somebody Mickey Mouse these transmission lines a long time ago. It's created a bit of a situation for no less swap. Down some more. Back some more. How's she looking, guys? Looking okay up here. Down some more. Back some more. Wouldn't say it's any more difficult than getting the small block 350 out. All right, I got a ratchet strap up here on the nose. Try to keep some angle on it. Ratchet strap is off. Okay, come back where you're at. I see. I see where we're at. Okay. What do I need to do? The motor mounts are almost far enough back. I'm gonna jack the transmission up a hair. That was just wood blocks I had wedged underneath it. There it goes. Okay, we're almost clear of the motor mount there. I think I can go straight down. Okay, I've slipped onto the motor mount. All right. We are on the motor mount, not down quite far enough. We are almost lined up. Pins are pretty much in the hole. All right, we should be able to come straight back and down. Well, so she's pretty much home. Well, there you have it. It's in. I got two bell housing bolts in. I have two motor mount bolts in. The nuts aren't on them, but I also slid the torque converter forward and it's not hitting anything that it shouldn't be. So we got no problem there. So this is kind of configuration. Look how close these coils are to the firewall, or the I guess you'd call that the cowling. Shouldn't be any problem at all getting the wires on though. Got tons of room up top. You can see my supervisor over there on the wall staring at me. That's all that bastard ever does. We got a little bit more room on this side. So our exhaust ports are maybe 3/4 of an inch above the layer of the floor. So have to see what exhaust we have that'll work. I got about 4 fingers width there and a little less on the other side. How often do you see a vehicle where the alternator is 3 inches away from your toe? I'll take you around the other side, let you look there. Here she is from the front. Now if that ain't shoehorned in there, I don't know what is. It looks like it's touching, but it's not. I mean, it's 1/16 of an inch clearance. Power steering pump. I mean, it looks like it was made for this vehicle the way it's situated. There's try to get you down here. Sorry for the bad lighting, but motor mount, other motor mount. A lot more room over here. These coolant heater core hose locations are, I mean, ideal. Nothing there that's going to be a problem. That one up there is not either. Got plenty of room. I am going to have to cross to the other side of the engine bay, but plenty of room on the coils. This side you can't even really see them. They're down there somewhere. But I got to tell you, that looks a whole lot better than that crusty old oily 350. Not really seeing any clearance issues other than that one there. Pretty happy with it, I gotta say. I'll probably shoot some flat black on this, and this will probably actually clean up, and that'll also clean up. Just a tiny bit of hand rubbing. You've come a long ways today. Figure out, I'll have to pull that whole front drive assembly off to get that power steering pump out, but I would like to kind of figure out what I want to do with my power steering. That's my box, my lines, and the old pump is still hanging there. Kind of wanted to see what it would compare to as far as the length of the hoses. And it's nearly going to be, the return is going to be a straight shot. I mean, it's these metal hoses in right here, so return's a straight shot. I don't know yet about the pressure hose. The pressure hose is about a foot longer from here. We'll cover that here shortly.